5, 4, 3, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Caroline O'Regan, and welcome to the RCSI University of Medicine and Health Sciences. This is our 13th and final webinar for Series 1, Conversations That Matter, in collaboration with the HSE. The topic this evening is COVID-19, the art of hope and creativity in a crisis. I'm very pleased to welcome our panel of experts, Dr. Miriam Colleran, consultant in palliative medicine from St. Bridget's Hospice and Naas General Hospital. Also Ruth Medjaber from Dublin Studio Window Portraits. Also Dr. John Fitzsimons. John is a consultant paediatrician with Temple Street Hospital here in Dublin, and John is also a clinical director for quality improvement. And I'd like to warmly welcome Gráinne Hope, and Gráinne is a cellist, artist, director of Kids Classic. And finally, I'd like to welcome Aileen McCann. Aileen is head of Harpers for Hope, Carrut, Éireann, Harp Ireland. Over the past weeks, we have heard amazing stories of leadership, of courage, of bravery, of pride, of pain, of compassion, of love, and of loss. As healing comes from many sources, we wanted to explore some of the healing powers of art and music for our nation at this time. Tonight, we are curious to explore our panel's perspective on how art and creativity can help our people and have provided support and comfort to our nation during COVID-19. Our talk will finish in about 45 minutes. And we'll have an opportunity at the end to put some short questions to our panel. My colleague Tina Joyce will collect those questions during the course of our conversation. And now I would like to hand you over to John, my colleague, who will take our conversation into the next level. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Caroline. That's great. Good evening, Gráinne. How are you?
I'm great. I'm very well to be here in these times. I'm delighted to join in this conversation.
Yeah, you're very, very welcome to Conversations That Matter. Thanks for coming. Gráinne, will you tell me a little bit about your life in music? Obviously, it's very important to you, but where did it start and how did you get interested and how did it progress?
Music was something that was always in our household. Of a parent who's a professional musician, and I suppose being around it all the time, it was something that all of us, my siblings, grew a passion for, and then that led to further studies in third level, and which brought me abroad. Music really it brings you everywhere. It connects you with so many different people and so many different cultures. I always see it as a journey, which I'm still on, and music is it's a huge part of that.
And why the cello, or is it only the cello? What else do you play?
I play a little bit of ukulele in the Children's Hospital, but I will only claim a profession as a cellist. And I'd love to say it was a romantic story, but I'm a twin, and my sister and I both played a violin at the time, and I wanted an instrument of my own. And in the orchestra at the time, there was this big instrument, and I was fascinated, and I did like the sound, but the key thing was for me as a young person, I could get to sit down while practicing. So so there was a little bit of wanting my own instrument and the practicalities of practicing for hours, which now have paid off.
Yeah. And when did you start to kind of see the connection between music and your involvement in music and healthcare?
I suppose I was very privileged to have the opportunity to take my grad studies in America. And as part of that, we got an opportunity to do what we call a community concert, and it took place in the hospital next door to the university, Duquesne University in Pittsburgh. And I remember, even to this day, some of the lasting memories come from those early days when I saw the connection music could have with people in a different setting. I suppose for so long, you're trained as a professional musician to work on one type of stage. And you often don't really get to connect with your audience because they're in the black. You try to connect through the music, but you don't get to see or perhaps conversate with them until after the concert, depending on the type of concert. And I really I remember it lasted with me, that whole idea, we can communicate, really talk to the people that we're playing music with. And I remember saying, well, when I come back to Ireland, that's something I'm going to put in my back pocket, and it's something I would love to look into more. And then the opportunity, I came home after grad studies and the opportunity arose. I realized as a musician of the 21st century, it's like, oh, I want to make a difference with the music, and I really want to connect with people. And where was the opportunity? I had always been involved through family with youth orchestras and children, and I realized people in hospital, young people, their families and their siblings, when something's going on in someone's life health-wise, the whole family are affected by it, so they don't get to go to a cultural event, and even more so now moving forward with the extra immune circumstances the society is in. It was just something that I thought I'd love to do something different. And
you did, and you went on to form to found Kids Classics. I mean, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, it was formed off that idea, wanting to make something different, and I approached the 3 children's hospitals in Dublin, and it was literally love. I'm a musician, I love music, and I'd love to see how I can support your setting as a professional musician. And at the same time, I was an education musician as part of a team with the National Concert Hall in Dublin. So I kind of brought the two together and say, I think there's something we can do here that is mutually beneficial, getting really professional musicians out from the concert hall and into the community. And really what I thought was a pilot that might last 2 months. We're in our 11th year. We're in 12 hospitals, both from all the way from neonatal all the way through to palliative care and nursing homes. We do approximately over 130 visits a year into a setting. We have 9 musicians on our team, constantly growing. And I think roughly we interact with probably 1,800 people a year.
Wow. I think now might be a good time to have a little look at we've got some photos and maybe we can get a feel kind of for what Kids Classics does. If the guys want to just play that video there, please.
Take it oh so slowly, there's no hurry now. Ease your mind and body and lay down your worried brow. Feel the rhythm of the rolling sea. On this ship we're sailing, it's just you and me. Just you and me. Remember those leaves are falling, memories of old friends. Distant shores keep singing the songs that will never end. Feel the wind blowing right through your hair. Fill your lungs, my darling, with the wildest air. And be, well, don't be afraid. See the horizon, it's just another turning page.
So is that a good representation, Grania?
It is. It's as they say, a picture paints 1,000 words, and it's something that you know, it's hard to quantify even in words as a musician the impact that it has, but I hope through those photographs it comes across.
And I always knew when I worked in Drogheda the Kids Classics were about, not because I could hear the music at the beginning, it's because it went so quiet, and that's because everybody was listening, and I could feel the calm in the place. And obviously, you know, COVID has disrupted all of this for you, and how are things going at this stage? Have you plans to get back, and what are the ways that you can start to connect again with your audience?
Well, I suppose music is something, being creative, you're always, and even from the start of this, is trying to see how we can make it work, how we can access people where they are, regardless of location or circumstances. So that has always been a big element of the work that we did. And so now what it means is, okay, there's extra challenges with this virtual realm. Even 2 musicians at once can't play at the same time due to latency. I didn't realize all the skills which I should have paid more attention to, perhaps when I had the professional engineer beside me that could sort the microphone out or the camera, and all these skills all of a sudden that you have to, you know, learn quite fast. But it's certainly, we've trialed a couple of, which has been really wonderful, a program called Musicians on Call. So basically we set up some virtual times and dates with the hospitals that we're already in partnership with, and the families can kind of book a time for us to come visit them in their hospital room.
Wow.
We were able to do it during Laura Lynn's hospice week, and we were able to, there was a child in for respite care and their family at home. So music, even virtually, managed to connect everybody together.
Yeah, and do you think we're getting to that point where we see music as almost kind of something that's critical to the healing process and to the care process, rather than something that, you know, we just do when we've got everything else sorted? And
I think certainly in recent years, there's a growing understanding that taking part in the arts in general has on all members of our communities, including on their health and well-being. And
yeah.
I mean, that's evidence in the balcony singing in Barcelona, the line dancing in Ringsend of the Flats, you know, the little parades that took place when St. Patrick's Day couldn't take place, the music, the dance, the TikTok. I think it's so much part of people's lives that it's amazing how people have held on to that at this time. Certainly, I mean, tailored music programs delivered by hospital musicians is something that is quite familiar in other countries. There's lots of programs in Great Ormond Street, Royal Brompton in the UK, you know, in Manchester, Leicester, and certainly in America as well. It's fairly new here, although we're 11 years at it. It's a small little seed. It's something that's growing. There's certainly the settings where we've been partnered with. They just welcome us back with open arms. Can you come more often? So there is a value, people who see it work and see the difference that music can make, and I suppose they also value the training. We'd be different. How we deliver music would be different to a music therapist. So if we don't have a clinical relationship, but I suppose for so long we train to understand the stage. So now what our organisation does, the training we give musicians is to understand the clinical setting and how the right song, the right placement, the volume, and sometimes the most important thing as a musician in a healthcare setting is to know when not to play, because music isn't always the answer to everything.
Sure. Well, I know I love hearing you about, and I can't wait until we see you back in again soon, and I hope that we get to welcome you back to Temple Street and back to all the children's hospitals again soon. And thank you for all you do. Hopefully we'll get a chat at the end again, kind of with everybody. I'm going to hand over to Miriam, and she's going to continue the conversation. Thanks, Grania.
So thank you very much, John, and thank you very much, Grania. And I'm delighted to welcome Ruth, and Miriam now is going to have a conversation with Ruth, leading into the fantastic work that you have done, Grania, beautiful imagery, which is heart-wrenching. So thank you so much. So Miriam, I'll pass over to you now to have a conversation with Ruth and her beautiful photography.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Caroline. Ruth, I'm sure you're familiar with the late Dorothea Lange. She's known for her photographic chronicles of the Great Depression and of farmers. And she said that photography takes an instant out of time, altering life by holding it still. And I suppose that really, the project you have done, Gras Sawalia, has just been so beautiful. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you about it. But can you tell us first, Ruth, what about your photography and how Gras Sawalia came to be?
Well, thanks so much for having me on this evening. So my background is music photography. Normally, this weekend I'd be shooting Glastonbury, and my general day-to-day is that I tour with bands. Last year I did a stint with Hosier, the year before was Arcade Fire, so I'm out on the road taking photographs of musicians an awful lot. So when our industry was kind of the first to be hit with COVID and all the cancellations and everything that came with it, so I was in a pretty dark place around the start of March. And it's unlikely that my industry will be back up running again in any decent form until probably this time next year. So I had a massive gap to fill. I kind of went into, I guess, fight or flight mode. And my job is is based around adrenaline mainly. You know, I photograph, I shoot every single day. When we're on the road, we have a gig at 9 o'clock every night. So that's kind of ingrained in me. I'm used to shooting every day. I'm used to my day gearing up to the evening. So when I was sitting here at home with nothing to do every day, I kind of just felt this drive. I was like, I need to get out and shoot. So I was going out anyway in the evening with the camera, walking the dog, you know, that kind of stuff. Just couldn't get my head back into this normal life of 9 to 5. So it was then when I kind of saw, you know, I live alone, and it was extremely lonely during this whole pandemic, especially at the start when you're just so isolated. I know you're supposed to be isolated, but it's severe when you're living on your own, and there's only so much that Zoom and everything else can do for you. So I had this just desire to connect with people. And I live in this lovely little estate in Finglas where it's quite quiet and it's gated, and we can look into other people's homes. And for me, as a photographer and as a really nosy person, it's fascinating. When the light outside drops enough for the glow of inside to come streaming out, it's fabulous. You know, it's kind of akin to Christmas time when people have their trees in the window and they leave the blinds up, and you can have people's houses. So that kind of warmth is what I wanted to capture, that buzz of happiness of actually being at home for a prolonged period. You know, being at home for a long period isn't something that I'm really used to either. As music industry people aren't, you're gone for more than you're here. So I began to just photograph them. I went out at twilight every single night since March 23rd. I started initially photographing 16 of my friends, because 16 was a strange number. I picked it because it makes a perfect square on Instagram. So basically my whole project is based around Instagram. But I wanted 16 people before I released the project to social media, and I just used friends in my area. Then when I put it online, the Irish Times got hold of it. They put it on their front cover. After they did that, CNN did a piece, and then it spread like wildfire. People wanted to be involved. So I woke up to 450 emails in my inbox from people all over my area, all in Dublin 3, Dublin 11, Dublin 9, saying, we want to be involved. And I just thought, wow, I have to continue this, because it's only, you know, it's only fair. I don't want to be that person who's like, actually, no, I don't want to do this anymore. So I just went for it, and I have been out every single night taking photographs.
And Ruth, will you? I know you're happy to show us some of your photos. To very kindly show us some of your photos, and will you tell us the story behind them?
Yeah, absolutely. I will. So I can see I've got one here on my screen. I think I'm looking in the right place. I don't know if this is working the way it should for me. But yeah, so I've got this little doggy in the window. This was the street. So how I work it is it's going to be a book now, okay? And when the publisher came to me, they were like, we love your series, but, you know, it'd be great if it was representative of all of Ireland instead of just Dublin. And I said, yes, I wholeheartedly agree. If you give me permission to travel, I will go for it across Ireland. And I did. So how I do things now is I try and find people in different locations. My friend Aoife in Clifton organised 16 people. Joe in Offaly organised 10 people. And I was going and travelling around all these different parts. The dog here is on a street in Chapel Izzard. And this was probably the most hilarious night. I was going to visit two friends, put them in the window because they're a musician and a really creative set designer. And I said, I want to put you in the window. Is there any chance your neighbours would do it as well, so that I can have a few people of a night, because I can fit around 4 to 6 people in the space of twilight. And they were like, yeah, we can get some neighbours. They were really casual about it. And I was like, really, are you sure? Because, you know, this is important, la la la. And they're like, yeah, just come over. And I got there, and the whole street was basically having a street party. And everybody, once I did one picture, they all wanted in. So I ended up getting about 12 houses, and they're all the same lovely shaped window, but the contents of the window changes dramatically. And this little lad was the last one to be shot, and he was staring at us all on the street having a drink, kind of going, can I come? Yeah, so that's part of it, is me wanting to really get around Ireland and have a fair representation. So if we continue on through the photos that I sent,
great.
Yeah, we'll see some more. I can't. Ooh. Yeah. So this is Bernie and Ben.
Okay.
So when it comes time for this to be an exhibition, or or the book, which is out in November, I really have it in mind that I want to tell the whole story of the lockdown and of what we've gone through collectively over the past 3 or 4 months, and really get a good time capsule of Ireland in 2020.
Yes.
And that's, there's all sorts of elements in there, like from banana bread to the black. Yeah, like, I mean, banana bread, dodgy haircuts, it's all going to be referenced with stories. There's going to be
Did sourdough make it in yet? No.
Yes, it might. Actually, one of the guys did bake me a loaf of sourdough, so maybe that'll be his story. But there's 50 stories going to accompany.
Oh, wonderful.
Accompany about 160 photos. But this is Ben and Bernie, and they Ben was served with a deportation notice just as lockdown began. He was previously a resident of a direct provision centre, and Bernie, she's an amazing woman who collects donations for direct provision centres all across Ireland. And I just think, as the rest of us were settling into lockdown and taking comfort in our homes, Ben was, he's just constantly in fear of losing his. So these are the kind of important stories I want to tell through the windows, as well as just featuring as many different people as I possibly can.
Yes, of course.
So there's a few more I'll show you. Yeah, so like everybody, I mean, I wanted to, so my father's Muslim and my mother was Catholic, and for me a good representation of Ireland is everybody. So it's very important for me for different religions to be represented, and this lovely family responded to my call out saying I'd love to feature families on Eid, because it's a big celebration, and I wanted that to be recognized, that this is a very strange time for religious celebrations. Normally you would be able to celebrate with your extended family, and unfortunately that can't happen. So these types of stories,
Yes, absolutely.
I'll show you some more.
Oh,
this is wee Riley. This is the cutest thing about this project, is that everybody is so excited. When it was pure lockdown, we've kind of eased it a little bit now, but during absolute pure lockdown, I was the only bit of crack that these people had for weeks. So me arriving to their window was really exciting, and I was really excited, and I was buzzing off it, and I was getting my little adrenaline boost, but so were these people. And I drove up to this house. This is the Popes, they're called, and I drove up, and there was Riley, this girl, standing in the window waiting my arrival so patiently. I was like, oh God, you're just the most adorable thing in the world. Because the kids, of course, are feeling the brunt of it too, like homeschooling and everything else. So the kids are going to be fiercely represented in this book.
Very good, very good.
Let's have a wee look. Yeah, so Loa and her sister Feda, which is Emma and Sally Garnett, two musicians who have been so creative during this whole pandemic. Loa performed with Lisa Hannigan in the National Gallery there a few weeks into lockdown, and I just think I don't know whether this is because I'm a creative and this is how I'm getting around things, but I think it's really important to acknowledge the work that people are doing during this pandemic for no reason than to entertain and help the rest of us get through it and process everything that's going on. So there is an awful lot of musicians in my book, and it is because I'm drawing on my own personal circle, but as well I think it's extremely important to acknowledge them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Ruth, I mean, those your photography and your this is absolutely beautiful. I'll come back in a second. Okay. Do you want to explain this picture to us? This photograph?
This is down in Waterford, and it's my friend's great granduncle or great and like just adorable. But the cutest thing about this story is older people feature a lot as well, because I think COVID has really impacted them in terms of loneliness and just restrictions, because a lot of people aren't seeing their grandkids and just feeling the brunt of it too. But I just love that we were setting up this shot, and I talk to people through the crack in the window, and you know, I listen to them, and sometimes they're like, how do you want us? Or sometimes when I got to this window, he was saying, I want to sit down and she's going to put her hand on my shoulder just like they used to do in the Victorian portraits. And I was like, okay, then you are super adamant about this, I'm going to let you run with it. And it's magic, you know. So it is, you're seeing a lot of people's own character and personality coming through it. It's such a strange thing, this. It is my project, but I like to think of it as kind of our project, of me and all the 160 houses, because it's definitely a collaboration. I don't just rock up and tell people what to do. I let them do what they want. So if they're like, should I move the plant? Should I have the cat in? Should I do this? I'm like, you do you. Whatever you are, that's it.
Their stories. Their stories. Ruth, that was absolutely magnificent. Thank you so much for explaining about Gros Sawalya to us, and hopefully we'll get to chat more in a few minutes. And thank you very much. Very heartwarming. And now I have the pleasure also of introducing Evelyn McCrann from Critch Éireann from Harp Ireland. Aileen McCrann, apologies. Aileen, delighted to have you here with us this evening.
Thank you very much, Miriam. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to have you here with us. And I'm biased, as you know, because I started learning the harp when I was 10. I plagued my parents into getting me one. So would you like to chat with us first about the harp?
Yes, well, I suppose the harp, as everybody knows, the harp is our national instrument. And the way that Harps for Hope, this particular initiative that we initiated back in March, was as a result of the UNESCO recognition of Irish harping on the intangible list of cultural heritage. And as part of the application which we worked on with the Department of Culture, Heritage and the Gaeltacht, we had to go to the communities all over Ireland for their submissions, their feelings, their reactions to harping the harp and what it meant to them. And we were so overwhelmed by the reactions that came back to us. You know, people saying that the harp they felt very close to the harp, they recognized it as their national instrument, the comforting, soothing sounds that it had, that we decided when the pandemic broke that we would try and mobilize our harpers all over the country to see what we could do to give that sense of comfort and solace and soothe people's frazzled nerves and the concerns they were feeling and the stresses they were feeling. So harpers from all over Ireland, more than 65 of them now have contributed to this series. Harpers from all over Ireland have given us a track, and one went out per day since March, April, and we culminated, well, we have some runners up still to come, but last Friday we culminated with 200 young harpers all playing virtually from their own living rooms. And the reason we asked them to do it, apart from this and apart from allowing them lend their voices to this surge of hope and positivity, was that Carolan, who was the last of the great Irish harpers, it was his 350th anniversary, and we decided we'd mark it in this way by playing one of his well-known love songs called Fanny Power. And all of these young people played this tune together, and we have a designer who has worked with us right throughout the series, you know, putting visuals up so that people would see different kind of images which might evoke other responses in them apart from the music, and often relating to the kind of music that it was. So we had a fantastic finale last Friday, but there's so much interest in the project that we have more harp players now coming on wanting to contribute.
Wonderful, wonderful. We have a piece here for us this evening. Would you like to play it now, or what would you like, Aileen?
Yes, absolutely. It's lovely. I think this is Kim Fleming, isn't it? Playing
Yes, it is.
Carolan's Welcome. Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Kim Fleming and I'm from Longford. I'm delighted to be part of Harps for Hope. I'm going to play a piece called O Carolan's Welcome.
Oh, that was beautiful. Apparently, Elton John said music has healing power. I think the three of you this evening showed that the arts have healing power. Caroline and Tina, can I pass back to you? Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, beautiful, heartwarming, and magnificent. And my colleague Tina has been taking questions through the whole series tonight. So Tina, over to you.
Yeah, your mic, Caroline. Yes. I think there's been more comments than questions this evening, and people are just saying just how beautiful the music is and how poignant the pictures are and the reality that they're capturing. So there's so many people just coming in saying thank you for sharing your creativity and your artistic work and the work that you're doing. And a couple of weeks ago, we had a CEO on from Lucy Nugent, who is the CEO from Tala University Hospital. And she's after asking Ruth if she'll throw the doors open to you to come in and to take photographs around the hospital of some of the healthcare workers and staff and patients, if you're up for that. So she said, I'd be happy to open the doors, just let Ruth know that. So I think really just that's it in terms of the comments of everybody just saying, applauding you on your creativity at a time like this. And I suppose one question then back to the three of you, like everybody else, particularly people who are working in healthcare, it's been a very challenging time. So what has kept you resilient personally and professionally? What has kept you resilient during these times yourselves? So I might start with yourself, Ruth, and then maybe go to Grania and then to Aileen.
I think for me personally, and this not to sound negative or anything, but I am a freelancer. I do work for myself. You know, I pay my own bills, the own mortgage, all that kind of stuff. And it's not a dependable job. It's not a reliable job at the best of times. It's just the very nature of what I do. And unfortunately, that's kind of the way the arts are treated in Ireland. So for me, what kept me resilient and what kept me working when maybe I didn't particularly feel creative or feel like I could stop was fear. And it's very sad, but it was a fight or flight situation, and I needed to just do it. So before I even started the Grossawalia, the Windows project, I tried lots of different things to make money and to make ends meet and to hustle. So it is quite a precarious profession that I'm in, and we're not really granted the same kind of cushion as a lot of other industries or a lot of other people would be if we were in jobs. So it's sad, but that's unfortunately the truth.
Okay, and maybe over to yourself, Grania.
I probably resonate with a lot of what Ruth said, because I'm a freelancer myself and have always have been. So from the very start of putting the idea together, you have an idea and you have to try to raise the funds, and you know, sometimes you have to pilot things and try things before the funding comes through. So that has always been part of my work, both as a professional cellist and as a hospital musician. So I suppose knowing and having seen the impact that music and the arts can have for people in our communities in lockdown, and then also really being able to see the value it can have to healthcare settings as they try to recover from the stress and trauma that COVID itself has placed both on the staff and the patients, that I just see it's a wonderful opportunity now for, you know, to be able to bring music back in, and as it helped the community to be able to now to help those in healthcare settings. So that's what drives me to keep going. You know, money's, I have bills to pay, but I try not to stress about that.
Okay, and finally yourself, Aileen, what's kept you resilient at this time?
I think part of it was watching the stress and the impact that the pandemic was having on the arts, and resonating a lot with what Ruth and Grania have been saying, and looking around, particularly the harpers who were mostly unprofessionalised, and it's a lot of the gig economy. So art workers were first out and they'd be last in. They lost everything. So we had Arts Grant funding, Arts Council funding, which we'd intended to distribute in an awfully different way, where we would have been running public events, concerts all over the country. And we decided, look, reinvest in our harpers, give them some kind of uplift, make them feel wanted, help them to contribute. And I suppose there's a feel-good factor, and you desperately want to keep people going in whatever way that you can. And I think for me, seeing the music coming in through my computer and seeing the fantastic efforts and the beautiful music that people were making, and particularly seeing the positivity and that sense of light that was coming through the music, and the hope was what kept me going. I had a sense of excitement every day as we were putting these up.
Okay. Right, I'm going to hand back to Caroline now, and just on that sense of light and hope coming in, Caroline, that kind of echoes a theme that we had from Professor Michael West a few weeks ago.
It does, and it's a beautiful theme. And I mean, Ruth and Aileen said the same thing, and Grania alluded to it too. So, you know, the light shining in and into our future, and thank you for that. And Professor Michael West spoke about that very eloquently when he did his leadership talk. So thank you all, and thank you for your time, and thank you for your input and your expertise. And it has been an amazing end to our very first series of Conversations That Matter. It's been very creative. It has showed how you have adjusted, adapted, and been very innovative in helping our country heal in what you have done in your own artistic way. So thank you for that, and thank you to our audience. And your webinar will be available online, and any additional supports are available on our COVID-19 hub. And this is our last Conversations That Matter. So you're a really important group to us. before we take a break for the summer. So we are so privileged and delighted that you have agreed and that you have so graciously given of your time. We will be back in September for series 2, and we would look for any suggestions that you may have, our audience, for what we should look at in terms of theming to leadership at rcsi.com. Also, I'd like to finally draw your attention to a sponsorship opportunity that the Institute of Leadership for women seeking to advance their leadership development. Applications are closing on the 30th of June. And also I'd like to bring your attention to some work that us in the Institute of Leadership are doing over the summer months. So we have the IOL be running a series of taster masterclasses, and we would welcome you engaging with us on leadership at rcsi.com. So finally, can I thank our listeners? Can I really thank a heart welcome thanks to our panel? I'd really like to thank John. I'd really like to thank Miriam, who have been with us for the whole journey, and to the ops team who work relentlessly behind the scenes to make all of this magic happen. So good evening and good night, and thank you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night,
Good night,
everybody.
thank you.
Have a lovely summer.